Good morning.
These are just people.
Recording in progress.
Good morning, members.
Good morning, Brian.
Morning.
Morning, Brian. Morning.
Morning.
Members, the chairperson is slightly delayed. He will be joining the meeting a bit later. For purposes of starting the meeting, may I kindly request that we elect an acting chairperson.
Okay, Brian, I nominate the name of Thabo Mutli. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Motapo. Do I have a seconder?
Honorable Petle is seconding.
Thank you, Ms. Petle. Do we have any other nominations? There being no other nominations, I therefore hand over to Mr. Mutle to act as chairperson. Thank you, members.
Thank you very much, Brian, and good morning to honorable members on the platform, members of or officials from the department, as well as AG South Africa. I wish to welcome all of you. Brian, as you flag the agenda for today's meeting, I wish to welcome all of you into this first meeting of 2024 and take the opportunity to compliment you for the year 2024 or the new season for that matter. With that being said, honorable members and colleagues, today's meeting will be processing a few items, which in the main are internal affairs of the portfolio committee. We'll be considering the first term program and its adoption thereof. We will also, around 11:30, we'll be engaging with the AG on then we'll be considering the first draft of the legacy report, and we'll then adopt reports for oversight that we did, Armscor Dockyard, as well as SA Army CTC in Lohatla. Consideration of annual report as well as minutes that are outstanding. With that said, I think we can then move to, so that by 30:30 at least we have made progress when we will be engaging the AG. We can now move to item 2. Brian, do you have any apologies?
Yes, we do. We've got an apology from the minister who's unable to attend due to a cabinet committee meeting that is sitting. We also have an apology from General Holomisa. Thank you. Those are all the apologies. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Can we grant honorable members those apologies as presented?
Chairperson, without me raising a hand, I think it will be appropriate to also note the late joining of the meeting by the chairperson in the apologies as well. And having said that, I move for adoption of those apologies.
The chairperson.
You are very much. Honorable Bond.
Yes, chairperson. I'm not too sure why there's no apology from Kobus, but he's meeting with a whole lot of ambassadors today. So can I just put his apology in for him?
Okay.
Thank you.
Why is he not in the meeting? What is the apology?
He is meeting with the ambassadors.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
I want to believe that you are seconding Honorable Bond with that submission.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
No, I want to believe that your submission was coupled with secondment of Honorable Pesh.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, Brian, we can then move to item number 3 and look at the first term program. Yeah, the draft 2024 draft first term program for the committee is as it appears on our screens. Wednesday, the 7th of February, it's today's meeting where we are dealing with the report itself and the items that I've outlined earlier in the agenda. And on the next week, on the 14th of February, Valentine's Day, we'll be dealing with a briefing by DMV on a rollout of pension benefit and as well as filling of vacancies. There are 2023-24 third quarter expenditure and performance report, feedback from PCDMV, 2023 BRRR recommendation, and consideration of outstanding minutes. On the 21st, that is the other week, we'll be receiving briefing by DOD on its third quarter report, feedback from DOD and Armscor on the BRRR recommendation, as well as consideration of minutes. Then the 4th week, receiving progress report by Chief Human Resource and Chief Army on Umzimbuvu. This is the word, Umzimbuvu matter. Briefing by AG as well on its financial audit outcome on DINEL for the past 3 years, and then consideration of minutes. The 5th week, 6 March, will be dealing with Border Management Authority on the cooperation with, between BMA and South African National Defence Force on borders. and also briefing by content advisor on high-level overview of the DOT budget and strategic performance indicator, as well as minutes if they will be there. And the week of the 13th March, it will be briefing by content advisor, high-level overview of DMV budget, strategic performance indicator, briefing by DMV on its audit action plan, as well as DMV audit committee on its monitoring of audit action plan. 20th March, progress report by DOT on expenditure on the ring-fence budget allocation for border safeguarding, briefing by DOT on its audit action plan, briefing by DOT audit committee on the monitoring of audit action plan, as well as minutes. And lastly, it will be 27 March, consideration of the adoption by the legacy report of the 6th term, and deal with process minutes if there will be minutes in that particular meeting. So, honorable members, this is the draft program with items to be considered in those meetings. I will now grant you an opportunity to input on the program. If you are happy with the program, we can adopt the program as is and move to the next item. So I'll grant you an opportunity, honorable members, to make your input on this draft program. Honorable Bond.
Thank you, Chair. This oversight that we were supposed to have in Durban, will that be part of the program or not?
I lost you there.
The oversight that we were supposed to have last week, the 30th and 31st, in Durban, would that be included in this program?
Yeah, I think as we are concluding the work of this 6th Parliament, Brian, you'll assist me. I think there is an instruction that we will not do oversight work outside the work that we need to do in terms of finalizing the legacy reports and deal with important issues like the reports and so forth and so on until Parliament rises. Am I correct, Brian?
Indeed, Mr. Mutle.
Yeah, that is the situation. Therefore, that is why even that trip was then cancelled. It was based on that particular instruction.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other hands? It doesn't look like there's
Chair, Mothapo.
any other hand. Can we then move for the adoption of this? Mothapo.
Yes, the first bullet, Chair, it should read 2024 first term program. The first bullet, Wednesday, 7 February.
Oh, 2024, yes. I think it's a typing error. Yeah, that's corrected.
Okay, with that correction, Chair, I then move for adoption.
Just
Yeah,
a sec.
Okay.
Just a sec.
Who's on iPhone?
Mr. Mafanya. That's Mr. Mafanya, Chair.
Yes, Honorable Mafanya.
Yeah, on the 14th of Feb, where we are going to interact with the DMV, I want to note that there's a letter that came from staff. Can we look at it and elaborate on the matter even when we make decisions as well? Thank you.
Come again, you said there's a letter from what?
A letter that was put on our group, and it was also written to the chair, Mr. Kaba, ourselves, that there are contradictions in terms of what we have been presented with by the DMV, and including the in exception to what is entailed from the staff members who wrote an official letter to us, as well as to the ministry. So I want us to also look into that as well, most probably on the 14th of Feb.
Uh, 14th of Feb, a letter from. Are you? Where can we factor that one? I'm just not aware of the letter. It might have. I might have missed the letter. Chair is in the meeting. Chair, are you able to intervene in this regard?
Yes. Good morning, colleagues. Thank you very much. Thank you for the words of support and comfort. And just on the point that the acting chair is raising, yes, the letter we received a letter from some departmental officials. I must say that they were brave because they did not shy away from mentioning their names in the letter, citing a lot of grievances that they want the portfolio committee to look at. And the letter was shared on the WhatsApp group. Maybe that chair, acting chair, you missed it. And so I think I agree that we must place it on the agenda for a discussion. Maybe we need to, I don't know, we must process at some point. As to whether in the next meeting or at some other time, I'm not quite certain. And but we must place it on the agenda at some point. I don't know if Brian can make a suggestion in that regard. I'm sorry, Chair, from passing this thing down there.
Okay. Okay, no, it's fine. Brian?
Perhaps, Chair, the suggestion would be before the close of the meeting, the letter could be discussed by the committee as to how it wishes to process it. Whether the meeting would want to discuss that particular letter with DMV, of which, if that is the case, it could be scheduled for discussion for the meeting of the 14th, where we will be dealing with matters related to DMV. Thank you, Chair.
So you're saying what is the way forward?
Chair, can I come in?
Yes.
I think I agree with Brian. He says let us read the letter towards the end of the meeting, and then decide
where we
want to process it and when. Yes.
All right. No, it's fine. I think that's a fair way forward. I think Honorable Mafanya, you agree to that?
I agree absolutely, sir. My chairperson.
Okay, all right. No, it's fine. Thank you. Then can we then move?
I move for the adoption of the program itself. Thank you very much, Chair.
All right. I think there was a mover. You are now seconding. The program is duly adopted. Can we then? Is the AG already in the meeting? Brian?
That is correct, Chair. Ms. Tsotetsi is in the meeting.
Okay. Can I then hand over to welcome Ms. Tsotetsi? Can I then hand over to you so that you take us through?
Yes. Good morning, Honorable Chair and Honorable members. Thank you for the opportunity. Chairperson, we are here then to provide progress on the matters that were highlighted by the committee following the BRRR process. It was recommendations regarding certain areas that the committee wishes the AGSA to obtain insights on and report back to this committee. So, Chairperson, we are at the planning phase of this particular work that we are going to do. So we have a brief presentation that basically outlines what we plan to do, like in terms of those matters that were brought to attention by the committee, Chairperson. I'd like to ask one of my colleagues to just share the brief presentation that was sent to the committee. Thank you, Erod. Chairperson, before I start, I also want to mention that I'll be supported in this presentation by Ms. Krishna Janse van Warrensberg. She is our specialist from the performance audit team that will lead the work that we are going to do into the matters that were highlighted to us by the committee. So she will then deal with the two slides in this presentation, and then I'll come back later to deal with the last slide. So as we start, I want to highlight again our mandate as the Office of the Auditor General. We have a constitutional mandate, and we exist to strengthen this country's democracy by enabling oversight, accountability, and governance in the public sector through our audit work with the aim of building public confidence. In the next slide, Chairperson, we again highlight the accountability ecosystem, which is also aligned to our culture shift strategy that we are currently busy embarking on, which basically says that there are many role players within the ecosystem, and we all have a role to play to shift the culture in the public sector towards doing good for the citizens. So, Chairperson, when we received then the recommendations of the Portfolio Committee, we took them in that spirit of saying that we are also a role player in the ecosystem. The Portfolio Committee is a role player. And so if you highlight certain recommendations on which you require insights, we took it positively that we'll then delve into those matters. And some of them were already in our line of sight, like the issue of Project Easter. We have been looking into it. However, we note then the issues that were highlighted, and therefore we'll then delve deeper into it in integration with our team from performance audit. So again, this ecosystem showing that even with the delivery of the items like Roof Easter and also the maintenance that the committee brought to attention, there's also various role players that must also execute their mandates accordingly to ensure that they support the SNDF. For instance, as we are planning this work, we are working closely with Armscor and also with DOD and their specific role players. So again, an indication that everyone needs to play their role effectively within the ecosystem for us to deliver on respective mandates. Chairperson, part of the recommendations in the letter also highlighted the role of internal audit, that we should continuously engage with them. And we want to give assurance to this committee that indeed that is happening, we continuously engage with the internal audit in all the environments as we conduct our work, because we do recognize them as an important role player within the accountability ecosystem. So indeed, Chair, we are then going to provide insights, as is highlighted in this picture, that the HSA is in the center of the ecosystem, providing insights so that we can influence the role players to implement recommendations where there are certain gaps that needs to be closed, and that in the areas where the influence then is not well accepted, we then move to our enforcement mandate around the metro irregularities. So thank you, Chair, for bringing these matters to our attention. We did send a letter to the committee early this year, which was signed off by the Auditor General, Ms. Maluleke, also then giving a commitment that the matters brought to attention will be looked into. At this point, Chair, I will then hand over to Ms. Janse van Rensburg to then deal with the two slides that talk to the plan of what we are going to do in terms of Project Esther, as well as the matters relating to the Air Force. Thank you, Chair. Over to you, Krishna.
Good morning, Honourable Chair. Good morning, honourable members. Just quick introduction. I'll put my camera on for that. As already introduced by Mrs. Tsotetsi, I'm Krishna Janse van Rensburg from Performance Audit, which will take the lead with these specific aspects that was brought to our attention. I think the first one is in terms of Project Hoefyster, and we identified the focus areas upfront on which we would like to spend our time at this specific stage. As we go forward, and you see that we are first going to start with a value chain. This might change, and then it will be updated and shared with the committee again. So our first focus area is on to determine whether value for money was derived in each phase pertaining to this specific project. So if you have a look at the graph below, we identified the initial 5 phases to include initiation, design, development, industrialization or production, and commissioning. So when we are saying value for money, we will look specifically into each phase objective and then measure it against whether that objective was achieved. Now, with the objective is also coming into the second bullet, where we are going to also focus in the delay in meeting the project objectives. And we know that if we don't meet these specific project objectives, it will result in misalignment, or it could result in misalignment between the available mission-ready inventory combat vehicles and the current mission requirements. And it can also then influence those dependencies, where identification of dependencies was done during the process, if we do not meet the specific project objectives in a timely manner or within the set deadlines. So if I can go over to what we anticipate at this stage that we will be doing. First, in terms of our risk assessment, we will compile a value chain. So the value chain will be focused on these phases that has been highlighted in the graph on the left-hand side, but it's also to make sure that we firstly understand the process that is being followed, identify all the relevant role players, and I think Mrs. Tsotetsi already highlighted the fact that this is not only a DoD project, but it spans over DoD, Armscor, Denel, and then further suppliers as appointed. So we also then, in respect of the value chain, we need to understand what type of monitoring and reporting took place. And then we will use all these together with the controls that's been instituted by management to see what will be the specific areas that we need to zoom in as soon as we go into the specific audit. So the second part in terms of nature and scope is referring to the specific audit. If we say we are going to test economy, efficiency, and effectiveness, roughly we're talking back to objectives. So quality, quantity, cost, time, and what is the output or the outcome at the end of the day. We also did refer to acquisition, but acquisition will then cover all phases and all stakeholders in this regard. So if we are going to have a look at it specifically subsequent to the value-adding audit work, and you will see it's the same with repair and maintenance of SAF at the next slide, we are going to use the value chain then to inform our plan, and then we will use that plan for the audit work to be done during 2023-2024. So if we have a look, say, for instance, on Hoofyster and talking about commissioning, we know it's not being commissioned, so it's not brought onto account yet. But yes, then that specific area will be postponed until we get to that specific phase of the project. Thank you, Edward. If we talk about the SA Air Force Prime Mission Equipment, specifically focusing on repair and maintenance, our current focus areas that we have identified is once again to determine whether value for money is derived from the existing repair and maintenance service providers. It's also to assess the alignment between that contract management achievement and the actual availability of prime mission equipment, and then also to evaluate whether optimal efficiencies is achieved with the use of the current contracting system that utilize multi-year maintenance and repair contracts. So once again, we included a graph there, just setting out the process on a high level for you, where we say we do have this specific equipment. Is there some asset management plans in place? How do we budget for the repair and maintenance? The contracting of suppliers, talking back to the third bullet where we talked about the optimal efficiency that should be achieved, and then also the actual routine maintenance then when we receive warranties and utilization, and then the management information on the performance areas. So when we talk about management information on performance areas, there's two links to it. The one is in terms of if we have proper plans, our equipment is properly maintained, do we have specific prime mission equipment available? The other side is also when we get into our performance information and the predetermined objectives, does it support what we have set for ourselves as targets within our performance objectives? Not going to spend too much time on value-adding audit work. I think we already covered it. It's quite similar to what we have identified for Project Hoofyster, where we only after the value chain will determine the specific extent of the audit for 2023-24. And then also if we need to continue with it during 2024-25 audit cycle, we will also include that in the plan. That is at this stage where I'm going to pause and then hand back to Mrs. Tetsi. Thank you, Mbole.
Thank you, Krishna. So I'm going to deal then with the last slide of the presentation. This deals with the matters around performance reporting, so which is the audit of predetermined objectives. So again, noting the recommendations from the committee on BRRR, we have then decided to revisit our scoping for audit of predetermined objectives, with the result that we then scoped in 2 additional programs, which is the Air Force as well as the Navy, but with a specific focus on material performance indicators that relate to these programs. So for instance, on the Air Force, we may focus on the flying hours, and then we'll also focus on other material indicators within the Navy. The aim of then scoping those 2 programs was really to enable us to obtain a deeper understanding of the real root causes behind the non-achievement of the key performance indicators, which we brought to this committee through our presentation, where we were highlighting performance indicators that were not achieved. So with the work that we are going to do, it will then enable us to say what is sitting behind that non-achievement, And this analysis will also be linked then to the availability or the lack thereof of some critical prime mission equipment that relates to the Air Force as well as the Navy. So our complete then scoping in terms of the audit of predetermined objectives will now have 4 programs, which was the force employment, which was selected previously. And then we add the Air Force, the air defense, as well as maritime defense, which is relating to the Navy. And then we'll have defense intelligence, which was already scoped in the previous audit. So, Chairperson, that's the conclusion of our presentation, which is aligned to the letter then that was shared with the portfolio committee on how we are going to address the recommendations around insights into the matters that were brought to our attention by the committee. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Members, I'm now granting you an opportunity to interact with the presentation from the AG.
My hand is up.
Yeah, I see your hand is up. You are granted.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Let me greet the Office of the Auditor General, led by Ms. Tsotetsi. This arises from our previous engagement with the Office of the Auditor General on the performance audit in the Department of Defense. They started auditing Program 2, which is force employment. Then later added Program 7, which is defense intelligence. We picked up that Program 2, force employment, will basically, it's a Program 2. It's a combination. Force employment. It's the combination of weaknesses and strengths in the Navy, in the what you call infantry, in the Air Force. Yes, in those three in the main. That when there are problems with serviceable prime equipment in the infantry, let me say the landward forces in the army, and if there are weaknesses in the prime mission equipment in the Navy and in the Air Force, and those will then accumulate into what the Program 2 ends up with. And because Program 2 becomes the sum total, I want to put it in that way, becomes the sum total of the weaknesses and strengths that are in the different arms of service. And if there is less hours of training in the Navy, it means that the Force Employment Program 2 will, will receive people who have not been adequately trained. If there are less flying hours in the Air Force, hello? If there are less flying hours in the Air Force due to...
No, it's fine. You're back now.
Oh, thanks. Thank you so much. If there are less flying hours in the Air Force due to inadequate, serviceable prime mission equipment, that would reflect itself in Program 2, in force employment. If in the Army they don't have enough platforms to execute their work, that again will reflect in Program 2 when they have to deploy, because they use the same prime mission equipment that are available in the different arms of service. They also use the same manpower, let me say person power. If the person power did not have enough hours of training, that's what the Program 2 will receive. That's the team that they will have to deploy out there. If they're not adequate prime mission service, they're not adequate serviceable prime mission equipments, and in the different arms of services. That's what Program 2 will have available to them. So they will have to do with what is already available, coming from the different arms of services. So when there's a rot, I want to put that inverted commas. If there's a rot in the arms of services in relation to areas of performance, that would then end up in Program 2 when they have to deploy the forces, whether internally or externally. So we then thought that perhaps Program 2, it's way it's just a reflection of what you'll find in the different arms of service. Hence, we thought that now we need to drill down into the root causes of non-achievement of performance indicators in the various arms of services. Because if you have that, that's what Program 2 will inherit. So it's pointless, for example, that's a point we're making. It's pointless to say, Program 2, why you did not achieve this, that, why you did not achieve against your own performance indicators. Indeed, they're not going to achieve against their performance indicators because the non-achievement has already occurred in the various arms of services. You see, so that then becomes critical to drill down now to what they end up receiving from the different arms of services. We're really grateful that you have accepted to look into the project Wolf Yester in the Army and in the Navy, those contracts, in the Air Force, those contracts, as well as in the Navy, because it will start to tell us how deep the problem is in the South African Defence Force. So we really thank you for this deep dive analysis in our in the DoD performance indicators. Thank you so much. I thought I should just raise that and say this is the response. What you're presenting here is the response to what we recommended in the BRR. Thank you so much, Honorable Chair.
Okay, and any other hand? Honorable Bond.
Thank you, Chair. With the programs of the Auditor General, I think most of auditing is always done post what's happened. But as the previous speakers has alluded to, we as a committee have made comment on the fact that we are unhappy with the performance, and I concur totally with the previous speaker in that in evaluating how the DoD is performing, most of what we see is in the press anyway. So I'm very grateful for the Auditor General to do this deep dive. Thanks.
Okay. Am I audible?
You were not, unless it is on my side only.
Okay. Any other? Am I audible now?
Yes,
Yes,
Chair.
you are.
Okay. Yeah. Any other inputs? Okay. Methodezi.
Thank you, Chair and members. That will be all from our side. Thank you.
I thought you will be responding to the issues raised by Chair.
Okay, apologies,
Or talking
Chair.
to them.
Apologies. No, we note the inputs from Honorable Kaba, and we are really aligned to the comments that he made around maybe why there's a need for this deep dive into the non-performance by the DoD in the performance indicators that we've highlighted in our presentation. So, Chair, just to assure the committee that we are aligned to those inputs and the recommendations that were made by the committee, and maybe perhaps to indicate that we'll report then on the matters or the findings that we identify through this review later on when we present the BRRR of 23-24. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. In absence of any other hand on the report from AG, I will therefore close the item, and thank you very much, Metsotetse and your team. That brings us to the end of the discussion insofar as the presentation from AG is concerned. We will now move to the next item, which is the draft legacy report.
Chairperson.
Yes.
Chairperson from the DoD.
General Ramanswane. Yes.
Chairperson, thank you very much. I just needed to say that we have been sitting here listening attentively, and you have our assurance that we are going to be cooperating with the auditors as we always do. And we're just looking forward to the audit itself. One cannot agree more with Honorable Gava. I think he has made the comments that, of course, we are so much aligned to them. And lastly, Chair, it was for us to ask if we can also stand down, but to greet all the honorable members and to say compliments of the new year, especially having heard as well from the chairperson, Honorable Gava. Thank you very much, Chair.
All right, thank you very much, General Ramanswane and the team that you are with. Yeah, I think going forward, if you wish to withdraw, you may withdraw, as we'll be dealing with internal matters of the committee. Yeah, thank you very much on that note. We really appreciate your commitment to looking forward to working with the AG with the sole purpose of resolving some of the matters that we have raised in both our report and our engagements with you, and those that have been picked up by the AG. With that said, thank you very much, General, and have a good day, you yourself and your team.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes,
Chairperson?
Yes.
I just wanted to recognize the presence of the Deputy Minister, Chair.
Oh, okay. No. Welcome, TM. You are more than welcome in this meeting, and it's still morning. A very good morning to you, and thank you for joining the meeting.
Honorable Chair and honorable members, thank you very much for noting our presence in your meeting. The ministry was really a fly on the wall in this morning's discussions. It is indeed not our space, but we have taken copious note of what the AG's office is raising around the matters that were being discussed. We will certainly, as the ministry, have to arrange for a session with the Auditor General to have a full grasp of the challenges around our capital projects delivery, because indeed the problem we have is not only just of the scarce resources, financial resources for the department, but it's also efficiencies in how the money once released is utilized. Otherwise, Chair, may I also take this opportunity to say a prosperous and successful year to all members of the Oversight Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, TM. Dr. Willem, and I grant you the opportunity to take us through.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to all the members, and welcome to the what is to be the last term of the 6th Parliament and the last term for this committee as it's currently constituted. So perhaps it's fitting that we start with the discussion on the draft report of the PCDMV on its activities during the 6th Parliament. Just to lay out for members the rest of the meeting, as members noticed in the introduction and discussion on the program for today, the rest of this meeting will be administrative discussions that's internal to this committee, consisting of the legacy report, the annual report of last year of this committee, and then 2 oversight reports, which we'll go to. So please bear with us, as these are quite lengthy documents and lengthy things to consider, but they are necessary for the parliamentary, in terms of parliamentary rules. So firstly, we'll look at the legacy report of this committee, which is in draft format. This was already supposed to be considered by committees in the previous term. So what we'll do today is consider this draft report, and it will not be an adoption of this today because the 6th Parliament is still in progress. So members can consider this draft today. There will be an opportunity for members to give input if we missed anything, if there's anything you feel like changing or adding to the report. And then on the last meeting, of this committee in this parliament. We will take you through the report briefly again, just noting the additions that occurred in this term, and there will be an opportunity then to adopt this report. So I will take you through this document. It is a very lengthy document, and therefore I'm only going to highlight certain areas. Members have received this document, and you're welcome to work through it by yourself. But I will take you through the highlights, and then we can have an opportunity for further input from members. Just to note as well, this is on a standard format that is required from Parliament. So we use the standard format that is required and populated it with the necessary information from our committee. First of all, to start off, there's two or three pages of key highlights. This is like a summary of the entire document. And section 2 is quite important. It looks at the focus areas of the 6th Parliament, basically answering the question, what did this committee focus on in the past 5 years? And aspects we included here, this is a brief summary, includes focusing mostly on its oversight function. And the reason for this is just that one bill was introduced for consideration to the committee and was subsequently withdrawn. So there was limited opportunity for legislative work, and therefore the committee focused broadly on its oversight function. And it conducted oversight over its main departments, the DOD, the DMV, and its entities, Armscor and the Castle Control Board. And it did this through a number of means, primary of which include your annual performance plans of these departments, tracking in-year performance through quarterly reports of the departments, then doing the annual report analysis and the BRRR process. In terms of specific focus areas according to the departments, in the Department of Defense, there was a lot of focus on the issue around compensation of employees, and the committee then secured additional funding from National Treasury for the mobility exit mechanism. This was quite a positive step, achievement by the committee that can be noted. Then, but this matter has not been fully resolved, as was noted in the study tour report, where there's recommendation for the need of a revised human resources management strategy in the Department of Defense, and ultimately this is linked to the need for force rejuvenation. Furthermore, there was focus by this committee on funding constraints, specifically as it relates to prime mission equipment. And again, the committee noted this concern, and it intervened and it secured additional funding, for example, for the upgrade of SA Navy equipment, apologies, and for the South African Air Force's strategic airlift capability. Furthermore, this committee also secured additional funding for border safeguarding technology to enhance border security. There's regular engagements with the Auditor General on irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and towards the end of this Parliament specifically, there was an increased focus by this committee on issues around consequence management. And examples of this over the period includes the committee's work on one military hospital, the medical imports from Cuba during COVID-19, and Project Tusano. In terms of the Department of Military Veterans, the committee focused on issues around the rollout of benefits, issues around military veterans database, and then the whole issue around the organizational structure and the high vacancy rate, which creates managerial problems within the department. There was also engagements with the Appeal Board and Advisory Council, and towards the end of this committee's term, there was a focus on the rollout of the pension benefit. It must be said, however, that the DMV remains a concern for the committee, specifically as it relates to high senior management vacancies, its failure to timelessly submit its annual reports, and its poor achievement against performance targets. In terms of Armscor, the two entities we'll be looking at, Armscor and the Castle Control Board, during this 6th Parliament, the committee focused specifically on the management of SANDF procurement and maintenance contracts, and the low rate of prime mission equipment availability. And as the committee just discussed, this culminated in the recommendation to the Auditor General to further delve into this, which will then flow over into the 7th Parliament. In terms of the Castle Control Board, there were meetings during the annual reports and annual performance plans, And the committee focused on the fiscal sustainability of the castle, its concerns around reduced tourist numbers, especially after COVID-19, and the castle's reliance on funding from the Department of Defense. The first section, that was a synopsis, Chair and members, of the work of the Sixth Committee. Then there's also a need to focus on specific future work areas, and this is highlighted in section 13. There's also a synopsis of it contained here, but I will skip to section 13 to go through this.
Your line is bad, Dr. Willem. I'm not sure whether it's on my side only. If you can try and stabilize the network, it's a bit poor.
Chair, maybe can I ask other members, is it just on your side or other members also affected?
No, I mean,
no, but you are now fine. We can check members. Did you hear the presentation smoothly?
Yeah, he's sounding clear. Okay, he's sounding clear on my side.
All right, no, it's fine. Then proceed, Dr. Bella. Yeah, please
Thank you,
proceed.
Chair. In terms of key challenges and recommendations, I highlighted them here. By stating that the committee functioned well during the Sixth Parliament with an increased number of meetings and oversight visits, as well as substantial recommendations made during this period. There was a positive impact of membership overlap, and members can consider whether this is the case, but from an external observer's point of view, and looking back at the previous parliaments, there was significant overlap in membership between the Portfolio Committee and the Joint Standing Committee on Defence. And this overlap in membership allowed for members to build a more comprehensive understanding of the defence environment, and it is thus recommended that this be continued in the Seventh Parliament. One of the challenges was the filling of vacancies, that we do not have a defence researcher for the Portfolio Committee. And lastly, issues around cancellation of oversight visits. There was an administrative problem. The parliamentary program was often adjusted and periods set aside for oversight visits were cancelled, even after we started planning for such visits. So, Chair members, those are the synopsis pages of this whole document. Then running briefly through the document, it starts off with noting the departments and entities that report to this committee, and then other relevant structures and bodies as well. And these include the NCACC and the Defence Force Service Commission, the Military Ombud, and the Reserve Force Council. Members might note that many of these are dealt with at the Joint Standing Committee of Defence level, but it is also bodies that are accountable to this committee. Then there's a section on the functions of the committee, the method of work of the committee, which we touched on, how it relates to annual performance plans, annual reports, the BRRRs, and so forth, and the tools that this committee uses, be it oversight visits, meetings, and inquiries. And then the purpose of this report is to provide an account of the Portfolio Committee on Defence's work for the Sixth Parliament, and to inform members of the new Parliament, the Seventh Parliament, of key outstanding issues. The report then contains key statistics. Now, these will be updated at the end of the term to note the final number of meetings held, legislation considered, and oversight trips taken, and it's indicated for each year there. Members might note the impact of COVID in this regard. There was limited oversight visits held here in 2020, 2021, and this was noted in the first page as well. Stakeholders and briefings by public hearings. Because the committee didn't consider legislation, there was limited engagement with public hearings, in terms of public hearings. However, the committee held some important engagements with external experts and other representatives that are important to the work of this committee. And I noted the three significant ones here. In August 2019, there was the colloquium on civil military relations, and a recommendation for the next parliament. It is recommended that a similar engagement for the PCDMV be held during the initial months of the Seventh Parliament, together with members of the Joint Standing Committee of Defence. The aim of that colloquium was to orientate the committee towards aspects of civil-military relations during the start of the parliamentary term. Then in November 2020, there was an engagement with AMD, looking at the South African defence industry. And again, there is a recommendation that the PCDMV should, in the 7th Parliament, consider further engagements with the defence industry role players, and may do so in conjunction with the Joint Standing Committee of Defence. Throughout the 6th Parliament, engagements with the defence industry have increasingly shifted to the JCD as it aligns more broadly with the constitutional mandate of the Joint Standing Committee of Defence. Lastly, there was a number of engagements with the Khoisan Nation Self-Defence Unit. Members may recall this, and members may recall the discussions around this, that it was ultimately in a report set aside. And in terms of recommendations to the next Parliament, is that this committee, the PCDMV, considers the matter closed and there's no need to follow up during the 7th Parliament. In terms of legislation, there was 2 bills were introduced. The first was the Defence Amendment Bill, and that was completed in February 2020. There's the ATC report. And then members may recall the Military Discipline Bill that was introduced, but the bill was withdrawn on 6 March 2020. In terms of challenges emerging for legislation, the committee having to prolong the process and seek permission from the House to consider newly introduced amendments. That was an administrative problem in the long run. And then perhaps very importantly, a consideration for the 7th Parliament. The reason why the Military Discipline Bill was not considered was because there was no consultation with the Reserve Force Council. And as members are aware, currently the Reserve Force Council is not constituted. So until that council is constituted and appointed by the minister, there can be no further legislation development, as input from them would be required. So this is quite an important aspect, perhaps for this committee to follow up in this term already, but also for the 7th Parliament to note. Then members shifting to oversight visits conducted during the 5 years. There were a number of oversight visits. The first oversight visits were all orientation for members to the Army, Air Force, Navy and military hospitals and logistics division. Thereafter, there was a number of oversight visits, and we also included from the reports, the adopted reports. So I won't go through them in detail, but members might see there are aspects to follow up for the next Parliament. And these are coming from the oversight reports of these visits. We extracted a few of them that are still relevant and might require follow-up in the next Parliament. In terms of administrative challenges, was the cancellation of oversight visits, as was the case, members may recall, for this, we were supposed to be on oversight visit a week or 2 ago, and this was cancelled. And this creates administrative problems for the committee as well. Study tours undertaken. Members recall the study tour jointly with the Joint Standing Committee of Defence to Germany. In terms of challenges there, again, lengthy application processes at Parliament, which was a administrative concern. So issues to follow up for the next Parliament. For Parliament's administration itself, this committee can recommend more rapid response times to the submissions of requests and applications from committees. And in terms of the content, the key factor to consider from the study tour report is the issue around the DoD human resources management strategy that requires rejuvenation and also should be aimed at rejuvenating the Defence Force continuously. And I think that is an absolute key recommendation from this committee in the 6th Parliament, and something that must be prioritized during the 7th Parliament, because a lot of work of this committee went into this matter and delving into it and making concrete recommendations to the department and to National Treasury in this regard. In terms of international agreements, there was only the one, it's the Maputo Protocol. Members will recall we discussed it end of last year on the 25th of October and the 1st of November, and the committee observed that it was the Maputo Protocol's aspects relevant to this committee was already addressed by the Joint Standing Committee of Defence, the Joint Standing Committee of Defence midterm strategic review was ATC'd on the 31st of March. So the matters referred to this committee has been addressed. Just to then on that Maputo Protocol matter, it's in terms of the follow-up issues for the 7th Parliament is that they should monitor aspects related to gender equality in the defence sector. Next is statutory appointments. No statutory appointments that requires parliamentary involvement or approval were referred to the committee. But we do note here, however, the issue around the reserve force. We do note here, however, that even though this doesn't require parliamentary approval, there are a number of vacancies within the department that must be addressed. And these include the Reserve Force Council, the Chief of the SANDF Reserve Force, which is currently vacant, a Permanent Secretary for Defence, Permanent Chief Financial Officer for the DoD, a Permanent Director General for the DMV, and the filling of several senior vacancies at the DMV. Next, no interventions or petitions. And then there's obligations conferred on the committee by legislation, and this refers to the Money Bills, Procedures and Related Matters Amendment Act. It relates to the BRRR process that this committee has to comply with. And this was quite an important process in the life of this committee. And I think it reflects on some of the successes of this committee. And therefore, we decided to include all the recommendations that this committee made to National Treasury and the responses from National Treasury. And members will recall this, so I'm not going through them, but we included all of them to demonstrate that the committee has continuously made a recommendation to Treasury, and also in the latter years especially, that there were successes achieved, as we mentioned, in securing funds for the exit mechanism, securing funds for additional, securing funds for the refurbishment of the SA Navy and SA Air Force prime mission equipment and border technology. The BRRR recommendations of last year will require follow-up in the 7th Parliament, so we included them here as well. Then, members, an important section here is the summary of outstanding issues relating to the departments and entities that the committee has been grappling with. What are the issues that the 7th Parliament should look at based on the work of the 6th Parliament? Firstly, the issue around ongoing vacancies. As I just mentioned, a number of vacancies in the departments are creating instability at senior level. The PCDMV recommendation to the Auditor General, which was just discussed by the committee, and they gave us an outline of how they will address this. This is an important aspect to follow up for the 7th Parliament. Issues around border safeguarding technology can be followed up because of the work of this committee, getting funds for it, and seeing how this plays out in the 7th Parliament. That will require oversight. Prime mission equipment upgrades, specifically the airlift and frigates upgrades, and submarines as well. This was due to the work of this committee, and the 7th Committee should therefore follow up and make sure that these funds are adequately used and that we see an improvement in the capabilities of the Air Force and the Navy. The 7th Parliament should also continue to follow up on the issue of compensation of employees, as well as the SANDF Human Resources Management Strategy. The impact of the mobility exit mechanism, the impact of MEM, will only really be felt during the time of the 7th Parliament. And it's essential for the 7th Parliament to make sure that this has an impact and it stabilizes compensation of employees' expenditure. And linked to that is the issue that was found in the study tour report around the Human Resources Management Strategy. The next Parliament should also look at DoD contract management, and I think a lot of that will flow from the findings of the Auditor General as well. The next Parliament should very importantly look at the SANDF future strategic direction. The Minister of Defence indicated that the department is in the process of developing a new future strategic direction, and this will be completed by the end of 2023-24, so right at the end of this parliamentary term. And as such, there will be careful scrutiny required during the 7th Parliament of this future strategic direction, and also to see how it relates to the 2015 Defence Review. Furthermore, this committee in the 6th Parliament started to focus increasingly on issues of consequence management. It had some meetings with the Provost Marshal, it had meetings with the Hawks, and that is a trend that should be continued in the 7th Parliament. And then also looking at specific consequence management inquiries. This committee in the 6th Parliament worked specifically on the issue of one military hospital and the importation of medication from Cuba and Project Tusano. And it would be wise for the 7th Parliament to continue to follow up and see that consequence management on these matters are actually implemented. In terms of DMV, the 7th Parliament should continue to focus on database management, as well as vacancies and departmental capacity to execute their functions. The Castle Control Board, the 7th Parliament can focus on the issue around revenue generation and tourism at the castle. And lastly, looking at the Department of Defence and Armscor, this committee did touch on it in the 6th Parliament, but in broad terms, there were so many other priorities that perhaps this one fell to the side. But the committee did identify cyber defence as a major issue in need of oversight, and perhaps the 7th Parliament should focus on that. Then that concludes the major recommendations for the 7th Parliament from this committee. Here we have on the next section, in terms of recommendations, there's a number of recommendations, administrative recommendations, just to go through them. The first one, there's a number of administration and overarching oversight focus areas. I did go through them already in the first section of this document. Members will recall in terms of administrative recommendations that the membership overlap between the two defence committees could be seen as a positive development, and it's recommended to continue in the 7th Parliament. That Parliament should fill the vacancy of a defence researcher, and that the parliamentary programme was often adjusted and period set aside for oversight was cancelled. So those are the administrative recommendations, that these must be addressed. And then the oversight focus areas, these are just a quick synopsis as we just went through the tables above. Members will recall this table. These contain the details of the focus areas suggested for the 7th Parliament. Lastly, there's a master attendance list of the committee members as well as the staff of the committee. Chair, I'll hand back to you just on this one. It's a lengthy report. If there's anything now that members would like to add at this stage, they're welcome to speak up and we can incorporate the changes. Members are also welcome to send us written input if you have any written input on this legacy report. But like I said, there's no need to adopt it today. It will be finally adopted on the last meeting, but this is the bulk document. So if there's any changes required, we're happy to make changes now or through written submissions. Chair, I don't know if I'm audible, but if there's perhaps through you, if there's any of the members that would like to make input, we're
okay.
happy to
I was muted. Sorry about that. The honourable members, the report, the draft report has been presented. You are now given an opportunity to make inputs. Let me check the hands. Honourable Bond, is that a legacy hand or it's a new hand?
New hand, Chair.
And then you'll be followed by the chair. Go ahead,
Thank
Honourable
you, Chair.
Bond.
Thank you, Chair. we have been told that this is not the final document. It's not put forward for adopting. So the DA, we will reserve our right to put in writing what we should be what we think should be included, and that can be then discussed when this document is formally put forward. Thanks.
Okay, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair. I want to speak on the process point. I think Dr. Janssen van Rensburg is correct that we are not called upon to adopt the report today, and his presentation for comments in writing. Maybe we must set the date by when by which we want to receive the reports, the comments, so that those comments will then be incorporated into the report itself and highlighted, and so that by the time we adopt it, we take the presentation, the final presentation for adoption, we simply focus on the highlighted parts and then adopt the report. If you could just agree on the comments from the colleagues in writing, I would be home and try. I wanted to speak on the process. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, no, that's the proposal from the chair. I will then hear from members if they accede to the proposal. That any other thing that needs honorable member thing must then find its way to the report. We agree on a provision for writing those submissions.
Mafanya accepts, Chair.
Agreeing with the proposal. Thank you very much, Honorable
Chair.
Lohatla, Honorable Malia Keshelembe.
No, Chair, just checking. Whom are we direct? The submission to Brian or?
Yeah, no. I think that can be outlined. What I wanted to solicit was whether that proposal has been agreed to, and the proposal is now agreed to. And Dr. Willem or Brian, should we then, where do they direct these submissions?
Chair, that can be directed to Brian, the committee secretary. He will collate the inputs and effect the changes on it. And just to point out, I think the chair, Honorable Kaba, is correct that it would be best if then at the end of this term, during the adoption, we only discuss the matters that members requested changes on. So we will insert those changes and highlight them. Otherwise, we have to go through a very lengthy document again. So this is the base document, and we will demonstrate all the changes requested by members during that last meeting for adoption. So please do submit any requests for changes or any additions that you would like to see for consideration. Please submit it to Brian, the committee secretary, and Chair, with your permission, if we can perhaps put a deadline towards the end of February, that will give us time to work in those documents, because in March there's only 3 meetings left, if I recall, and we need to consider it during one of those meetings.
All right. No, it's fine. I think we'll just confirm, honorable members, the 29th of February is a deadline for those submissions. It's a proposed date. Do we agree to it?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay. I think there's an agreement, consensus. Therefore, anything that will come after the 29th of February will not be considered. The 29th February will be our deadline for those written submissions and inputs into the draft legacy report. So with that said, we have concluded our discussion, and thank you very much, Dr. Velem, for the great work that you have done in putting up that draft legacy report. We are now moving to the next item, which is the draft annual report on the activities of, am I right?
Yes, Jim.
On the Committee on the Defense and Military Veterans state their activities from January to December last year. Who's going to take us through, Brian?
Chair, unfortunately, Brian had to leave the meeting, so I will be continuing with this for the to take members through this.
Okay, no, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair and members. Unlike the legacy report, this is for consideration today and potentially adoption if members agree to this. This is an annual report of the activities of this committee for last year. This is in terms of the rules of the National Assembly that notes that a committee must at least once per year report on its annual activities. The report contains the committee membership there. In terms of the mandate and strategic priorities of the committee, in 2023, the committee had several specific focus areas. Committee focused, for example, on compensation of employees and related plans to stabilize this expenditure through the implementation of MEM. And the committee continued to track this in 2023. The committee focused on fruitless, wasteful, and irregular expenditure, and also had engagements with the Hawks and the Adjutant General of the SANDF. The committee also focused on audit findings by the AG, the issues around the acquisition of border technology, matters related to the Umzimvubu Regiment, acquisition and maintenance contracts by Armscor, and then dealing with the issue of benefits for military veterans, including towards the end of the year, the rollout of the pension benefit for military veterans. In addition to these specific themes, as outlined above, the Portfolio Committee also concluded its standard engagements throughout the year. And these standard engagements include your annual performance plans, your annual reports, and the BRRR process, as well as in-year monitoring through quarterly tracking. During the year, no bills were referred to the committee. In terms of oversight visits undertaken by the committee, members will recall there was the visit to the Denel helicopter maintenance facility in Ekurhuleni, and from there we went to the Eastern Cape to visit the helicopter unit there as well, and then also a military veterans housing project in the area. Then there were another two late last year. The one was conducting a site visit to the Combat Training Center in Lohatla following the fires there, and then to conduct a site visit to Armscor Dockyard to review the challenges faced and the levels of support offered to the SA Navy. In terms of the budget vote, fiscal framework considerations, there was the consideration of vote 23, which is the Department of Defense, and members will note on the right-hand side there all the dates of consideration and publication in the ATCs of the relevant reports. Similarly, it was also done for the Department of Military Veterans. Committee strategic plans. There was no strategic planning workshop in 2023, as this was concluded in 2021 when the committee had its strategic planning workshop. Conferences, workshops, and seminars did not take place during the year. There was one international study trip to Germany, and the actual report was published there. Meetings held by the committee. I'm not going to go through them, members, but this is a list, an extensive list of all the meetings and the topics discussed at all the meetings that we had last year. It's a comprehensive list, including all official meetings of the committee, with the last one taking place on 22 November. There were no cancelled meetings in 2023, which is a positive aspect, and there were no public hearings held during the year. Consideration of Section 32 reports of the PFMA published by National Treasury. These concluded related to quarterly reports on the DoD and the DMV that were considered by the committee, and members might note there that we considered DoD and DMV quarterly reports. All the quarterly reports were considered during the previous year. The annual reports were also considered. Members can see the name of the entity there, adoption of the report, and actual publication of the reports in the APCs. And then information on entities reporting to the department. This relates specifically to the engagements on the APPs of these entities. There's the Armscor, where the APP was considered on 10 May, and the Castle Control Board, where the APP was considered on 3 May. Then other entities in the defense realm include the Military Ombud and the Reserve Force Council, and there were no engagements with the Military Ombud, and this is because the Joint Standing Committee on Defense largely deals with the Ombud, as it relates closer to their constitutional mandate. And then there's the Reserve Force Council, which was not constituted during this year. And similarly to the Ombud, we also have the Defence Force Service Commission, and there was no engagement between this committee and the Commission because it was largely covered by the Joint Standing Committee of Defence. Activities not approved. This includes the attendance of the SANDF's exercise Ukuhlome. This application was declined, so we included it here. Sponsorship received. There's no sponsorship received by the committee. Papers referred to the committee, as discussed just now in the legacy report. There was the consideration of the Maputo Protocol, and the committee noted that the aspects therein has already been covered by the Joint Standing Committee of Defence. And then there's a number of papers referred to this committee for information. And these are all letters of employment by the President or the Minister for the employment of the SANDF. Now, this is referred to this committee, the Portfolio Committee, but it's considered by the Joint Standing Committee of Defence. So there was no further requirements, and it was just for information of this committee. But as members know well, we noted these in the annual report here, but it was considered, and we indicated that it is presidential employment letters are considered by the Joint Standing Committee of Defence. It concludes in the first section. We had the members list. It concludes with the staff list, where we indicate a number of vacancies as well. And members, I'm happy to take input, Chair. I'll hand back to you to take input. This is then put forth for your consideration and potential adoption. And just again to note that this is according to the format that we received from Parliament. That is how it should be submitted. So I hand back to you for input from members. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Willem. I see, I'm not sure. Your mic is open, Honorable Shalembe, and there's a gadget called Dodomzi. Your mic is open. I'm not sure whether you want to contribute. Honorable members, you are now granted an opportunity to comment on the presented annual report on activities of the PC.
The horses and the... No comment, Chair. So it seems.
Honorable Lohatla.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, mine is just to say the draft report is a true reflection of all the activities of this financial year. Thank you, and I move for the adoption.
Okay. Anyone who agrees and seconds?
Ngiyamsekela futhi.
Siyabonga Honorable Maliake Shelembe. Yeah, we have now concluded. I don't think there's a dissenting view. There's an agreement that the report is well structured and formulated. Thank you very much, Dr. Willem, for once again the good work that you are doing. Can we then move to the next item? It's a draft report on the oversight visit to Armscor Dockyard in Simonstown by the Portfolio Committee, which took place on the 13th of September last year. So please go ahead, Dr. Willem.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as you said, this is the draft report of the oversight visit to the Armscor Dockyard in Simonstown that took place last year. This report is also put forth for consideration and potential adoption by members. Unfortunately, I could not make part of this visit. So Brian drafted this comprehensive report, but I will take members through that and happy to take your input at the end. As you said, the oversight visit took place on the 13th of September. The purpose of the visit was to look at challenges experienced at the facility at the Armscor Dockyard, and then in addition to that, there was also an opportunity to receive an update on progress with regards to key projects of the DoD undertaken by Armscor, including Project Hoefyster, SA Air Force support contracts, and the using of the funds for the upgrade of the medium airlift capability in 2023-24. Members may recall that these are the names of the members that actually formed part of the visit to the Armscor Dockyard, and staff members, our committee secretary and assistant, Mr. Manti and Mdo, and there was a number of people present from the DoD Armscor as well as the AGSA. Firstly, in terms of the background, there was a tour of the facility. Members visited the docks where the SAS Mandatisi was docked, which is currently, which at that stage was undergoing repairs. Members also visited the decommissioned submarine, the SAS Asahai. Members further visited the Syncrolift facility within the Armscor Dockyard, and the other two submarines that were also undergoing maintenance at the workshop. And during this, there were discussions around funding constraints and high-level skills shortages that is affecting the work of the dockyard. But the dockyard did note that they have a center for refit skills to fill this, to bridge the gap and guarantee the safety of assets of the SA Navy. The SA Navy pointed to a need for the dockyard to establish relations with other stakeholders with a view to move away from the OEM's restrictive procedures. And there were discussions around this as well. And members moved on to visit the dry dock facility, internal combustion engine workshop, and the non-destructive testing facility. Thereafter, there was a engagement with Armscor's AB Logistics, and one of the key aspects that emerged there is the net positive contribution of AB Logistics during the previous year of 6.9 million, and they've foreseen 4.3 million budgeted contribution during this year. There was also a presentation around Project Hoefyster, and it was noted that the Project Hoefyster Project Control Board was held on 6 April 2023 and recommended that phase 1, the development of Project Hoefyster, be completed with acceptance of indicated specification deviations. Phase 1 dates were also indicated to the committee, as is indicated there, and it noted that Denel is busy with the costing of phase 2 of the production phase requirement, and as indicated, they will only be in a position to provide definitive costs by the end of December 2023, which has now passed, so perhaps this is another aspect for this committee to follow up in this term on the matter. Then there was a presentation around the medium airlift capabilities, specifically around the 1 billion rand allocated from National Treasury, which was due to the work of this committee, as a side note, and the spending of that money and how the funds will be spent to regain some capacity in terms of the medium airlift. There was also a short briefing on the serviceability of SA Air Force fleet with specific contracts for aircraft, including the King Air, Cessna Caravan, Dakotas, PK117, and Superlynx was indicated during this engagement. And then a presentation by Dockyard management on the Dockyard capabilities, and they focus specifically on challenges faced, such as aging buildings, availability of critical spares, wharf cranes, labor, integrated planning, consistent and stable power generation, and insufficient operational funding. And perhaps more important for this committee, looking at the observations made by the committee. Firstly, the committee expressed disappointment with the feedback provided on the progress with Project Hoefyster. The committee noted with concern that in spite of waivers made in favor of Denel, the entity has sought further concessions on the long overdue first phase of the project. The committee expressed immense frustration at the failure of the Project Control Board to reach a final decision on matters related to the project. It was highlighted that the committee has had numerous engagements with Armscor, Denel, and the DoD on the matters of contention related to non-delivery by Denel. Yet years later, there seems to be no sense of urgency to reach a final decision on the future prospects of the project. The committee expressed the view that the executive authority of both departments need to intervene. The committee then further noted that Denel is in a financially precarious position, as the entity has been unable to produce annual audited financial statements for a number of years. This is a serious concern for the committee, given that the DoD transfers funding to the entity to ensure it retains capacity to provide its services to the DoD. The committee questioned what reassurances have been made to the DoD and Armscor. The funding made available has been utilized for the intended purpose. In addition, it was questioned whether value for money has been derived from such transfers to Denel. The committee expressed serious reservations with regards to the appropriateness of the current funding model between the DoD and Denel, noting the strategic importance of Denel to the sustenance of the SANDF capabilities. The committee again stressed that the entity is currently not located correctly within the Department of Public Enterprises. The committee questioned whether the upgrades of the Air Force's C-130, which are underway in the UK, have commenced given the approval which has to be given by the UK government. The committee was then reassured that the upgrades are underway as the necessary approval has been secured. The committee further expressed concerns that Denel seems not to have required capacity to carry out work on the C-130s, which had to be contracted to a company abroad, whereas the DoD transfers funds, fixed costs, to sustain this capability within Denel. The committee observed that some of the buildings within the dockyard are old and have not been properly maintained. The committee called on the dockyard management to make use of the Defence Works formation to deal with the maintenance and rejuvenation of buildings. The committee also encouraged the dockyard to maximize opportunities for revenue generation but warned that such effort must not be to the detriment of the SA Navy. The committee expressed concern with regards to compensation of employees, expenditure within the dockyard, which was noted as excessive and unsustainable. And lastly, the committee decried the fact that the number of service and maintenance contracts are allowed to lapse, and only once they have lapsed are renewal processes convened. The committee called on the DoD to play a more active role in managing all contracts, members reminded the department of its previous suggestions for a contract management officer within the DoD. Then, members, based on these recommendations, based on these observations, the following recommendations are proposed. Given the failure of the entities as well as the departments, the DoD and public enterprises, the committee recommends that the executive authority of both departments need to intervene with a view to provide direction to the challenges and charting a way forward on Project Hoofhuister. Second, noting the strategic importance of the NEL to the sustenance of the SANDF capabilities and the sovereignty of the Republic, the committee recommends that the Minister of Defence and Public Enterprises should seriously deliberate on the appropriateness of the location of the entity within the Department of Public Enterprises. The committee recommends that the NEL, Armscor, the Department of Defence, and the Department of Public Enterprises should review the current funding model with a view to come up with a more viable and sustainable accounting mechanism that results in greater value for money for the Defence Force. Next, while the committee is aware of the funding constraints that the Dockyard is subjected to, the committee recommends that the entity prioritizes the rejuvenation of its building infrastructure, utilizing funding made available by Armscor and the DoD. In addition thereto, the committee recommends that the Dockyard makes use of available commercial opportunities, but with the SA Navy taking priority. And lastly, the DoD and Armscor should ensure better contract management of maintenance contracts and ensure that such contracts are renewed or new contracts put in place prior to the expiration of existing contracts. Chair, members, those are that is an overview of the visit to Armscor Dockyard with the draft report presented. I will put it back. I'll hand back over to you, and members are welcome to provide further input. We will make changes accordingly.
Thank you very much, Dr. Willem, for the presentation. I'll now invite honorable members to interact with the presentation, make input where you wish to make inputs. I'm waiting to see hands on the platform. I don't see anyone raising the hand. If that is the case, does that mean that honorable members are happy with the presentation? We can then adopt this report. Am I audible?
Yes, Chair.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I needed to verify that because I might be myself. Yeah. Honorable Shelembe, do you want to move for adoption?
No, Chair, I was not part of the oversight, but I can see that silence means agree here.
Okay.
But anyway, I can't recommend maybe those who were part of the oversight.
Can we have one honorable member moving for the adoption? Honorable Shelembe, so it's already seconded.
I would have moved it, but I can't as a chair. Maybe let me move it because you are in the chair. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. We'll get guidance. Willem, is it allowed for the chair to move the report?
Yeah, I don't know the rules.
Shelembe, please mute. Please mute. Shelembe, please mute your mic. We don't want to hear what you are discussing there in Mbumbu.
I don't have the rules in front of me, but perhaps I think it refers rather to the chairperson was the chairperson during the oversight. So then that means even you can move, I think, for this.
Okay. Yeah, but we've got members who can move. Yeah, we are not running short of members. We are not running short of members. Are you, honorable members, not happy with the report?
Mr. Mutla, we are happy. Please.
Then why are you not adopting it?
We are thinking that others might do it for us. I adopt. Here I am adopted.
Thank you, Honorable Mafanya. Honorable Mafanya. That's the problem.
Because I give you the acting chairmanship. Don't worry.
Okay. Any seconder?
Chair, isn't that the chairperson moved?
No, Honorable Mafanya.
No, but the chairperson, Mr. Kaba said.
But the chairperson was chairing the oversight, then he can't move.
How?
Mr. Shelembe, I moved that. Rather you ask whether you are second.
Okay, Honorable Shelembe, there are two movers, then it's fine. Can you second if you want to second?
No, thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Are you seconding?
No, Chair, I can't second because I was not part of it.
Okay. Can we look for a second honorable member? Anyone to second Honorable Mafanya? Okay, I will second I will second Honorable Mafanya. Can we then, this report is truly adopted. Can we then move to the next?
Thank you, Chair. I've noted the names. Then it's the last report for consideration today, and we kept the shortest one for last. Members will recall. Sorry, Chair. Can I continue? Can I go ahead?
Yeah. Maybe let me just introduce it. Yeah, this is the draft report of the oversight visit to the South African Army Combat Training Center in Lohatla by the Portfolio Committee, which we undertook on the 28th October 2023. You may proceed, Dr. Velen.
Thank you, Chair and members. Yes, the visit to the Army Combat Training Center in Lohatla, this was after the fires that occurred and resulted in the death of 6 members of the SANDF. And very shortly thereafter, the committee managed to visit the facility. So I'll just go through, it's a fairly short report. It was a short visit. I will just go through this. The members that attended, it's only a few members, but the chairperson and Mr. Woodley are in the meeting today, as well as Mr. Mafanya, who is in the meeting today. In terms of support staff, again, I was not part of this, so Brian drafted this report for your consideration as well. I'm just taking members through it. Brian and Oliver managed to accompany you. And then there was just a correction. There was no one from the Auditor General, so we will correct that as we speak. There were a number of DoD. Sorry, there was also no Armscor. I think this was taken from the previous report. There were just a number of DoD representatives present, and there's a list of the DoD representatives that were present during the oversight visit. In terms of the program of the day, the Portfolio Committee were welcomed by the Chief of Staff of the SANDF, Lieutenant General Romanswana, and the Chief of the SA Army, Lieutenant General Mbata. And then I think it's important to note that the generals expressed their appreciation for the visit by the committee. This is indicative of the support of this oversight body, and they noted that this will motivate the troops during such trying times. And the SANDF committed its resolve to continue with exercise Vukohlome, which was why most of these troops were in the area, despite the tragic event. The committee commenced its visit with a briefing and thereafter undertook a tour of the training area. So that's the broad program that took place during the day. Then the Department of Defense briefed the committee on the sequence of events which led to the fire breakout, and it also provided information on exercise Vukohlome that takes place on an annual basis. It provided the integrated exercise objectives, which was noted during the briefing, and the SANDF narrated the events of the fire and provided an overview of what happened on that fateful day and where the fire spread from and how it spread through the affected area, as well as the actions taken by the SANDF in the area. Then there was an update provided by the SANDF for all members that were injured during the fire, and members received an update of their current status at that stage and where they have been taken to. There's also a list provided of equipment losses, and then there was an overview of interventions to ensure safety. And these include, for example, as part of the ministerial priority after the fires at Walenstal, the Chief Army Task Project Lohatla with the facilitating the training of SA Army Reserve members as auxiliary fighters. So this was after the previous fire, members may recall. Then this was brought into play as an intervention to ensure safety in terms of fires. And perhaps importantly as well is that the soldiers affected were supported through donations from other services within the SANDF, own members, and especially SA Army Foundation donations. The families were also supported by the chaplaincy services and were transported to the SA Army Combat Training Center to identify the bodies of loved ones. Soldiers were also reissued with camouflage uniform, camping equipment, and the units have been redeployed in the field. So this list was just to demonstrate the interventions and actions taken by the SANDF. And lastly, it was also indicated that a board of inquiry has been convened in order to determine the cause of the incident and to recommend actions to be taken to prevent a reoccurrence thereof. In terms of the committee observations, the committee extended its condolences and message of support to the members of the SANDF and the families of the deceased soldiers, as well as those injured during the fire. The committee highlighted that this was a tragic period for the SANDF, seeing that it had lost a total of 13 soldiers within a period of 2 weeks, during a time when there was no active warfare. The committee further noted this happens at a time when the responsibilities and demands on the SANDF are increasing as a result of internal and external deployments. The committee further expressed concern that the fire is reported to have emanated from an adjacent mine. The committee queried whether the SANDF plans to lodge a legal claim against the mine to recover the losses suffered as a result of the fire. The committee was informed that the outcome of the Board of Inquiry would determine whether any legal consequences would follow, depending on recommendations. The committee noted that the extreme weather conditions that are experienced within the area, which can be attributed to global warming. Thus, the region is dry and has become prone to wildfires. The committee questioned the capacity of the DoD firefighting brigades to effectively deal with the frequent fires. The DoD exceeded that the current firefighting capability is wholly inadequate and under-resourced to respond to the magnitude of fires that the region has been subject to as a result of extreme weather conditions. The committee noted a need to ensure the SANDF is equipped in order to respond adequately to the frequent fires in the area. The committee also noted the training area is vast, which makes it impossible for the SANDF to monitor and detect fires throughout this terrain. The committee then queried whether the fire breaks in the pre-burning have been maintained in order to ensure that this provides the deterrent to the escalation of fire in the event that a fire erupts. The committee was reassured that the fire breaks are maintained annually and had recently been prepared and inspected in preparation for exercise Mklome. The DoD exceeded that due to the intensity and velocity of the fire, there is a need to enlarge the normal prescribed diameters of the fire breaks. The committee highlighted the importance of cordial civil-military relations during such disasters in order to foster collaborations with local communities in dealing with challenges of this nature. The committee queried whether the department has insurance cover for its equipment in the event of accidental loss. However, the DoD informed the committee that none of its prime mission equipment is insured due to the inherent dangers associated with the military. Lastly, the committee applauded the SANDF for its efforts of soldiers in fighting the ferocious fire. The committee made an observation that due to the capacity constraints, the intensity of the fire, and the speed of the wind, there is not much the soldiers present could have done better to prevent the losses suffered. The committee also noted that the instituted board of inquiry into the matter and called on the report to be made available to the committee once it has been finalized. These are the observations from the committee during engagements. These observations are made are based on comments made by members during those engagements. Then there was a tour of the facility. And lastly, in terms of recommendations going forward, while the committee is aware of the effects of current budget cuts in the Department of Defense, the committee calls on the department to prioritize the measures instituted to ensure the safety of soldiers at the SA Army Training Center. The committee recommends that the Department of Defense must capacitate the firefighting unit within the SA Army Combat Training Center with the required equipment and personnel in order to adequately respond to the frequent fires in the area. Noting that the SA Army Training Center is about 150,000 hectares, the committee recommends that the Department of Defense utilizes technology to monitor the vast terrain within the training area through the use of drones and video camera surveillance, particularly along the perimeter fence. Next, the committee recommends that the SANDF revises its standard operating procedures for measures to prevent fires and prevent escalation of fires, including the diameter of size of fire breaks, the frequency of drills and inspections and related training. Lastly, the committee recommends that the Department of Defense explores the possibility of instituting a legal claim against the mine from which it is suspected that the fire emanated, provided that culpability has been determined by the Board of Inquiry. Chair, I'll hand back to you. That is the report drafted by Brian for the oversight visit to Lohatla, and I'm happy to make any changes and consider any input from members. It was a short visit with short input, so happy to take further input from members. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Velen, for the presentation. Members, I'm granting you an opportunity to make inputs or interact with, make inputs to this report. I don't see any hand on the platform. Am I audible?
Yes, Chair.
Loud and clear.
Okay. I'm waiting for those who wish to make inputs. It doesn't look like there's anyone who wants to input. I want to believe that the report has covered the areas that has covered sufficiently the areas we touched on as and when we were conducting that oversight. Therefore, it reflects it's a true reflection of what transpired in that particular oversight that we had. So can I call for, in the absence of input, can I then call for the adoption of the report?
Mr. Mafanya moves for the adoption of the report.
Okay, any seconder? Any seconder?
Chair, it looks as though it's just from the ANC side, it was just the three of us, Baba, Mutle, and Mtembu. Mtembu is no more. So it must be between me and you to second. What do we do?
No, you can second, Chair, if you wish to second.
Okay, second. Thank you very much. I second, Chair.
All right. The meeting, the minutes are duly adopted. I think that was the last report, Dr. Velem.
Chair, indeed. Thank you for your patience and for members' patience for all the administrative arrangements, but that was the last report, yes.
Oh, okay. And we don't have any minutes to go through this in this meeting.
Chair, I'm not sure. I think there might be one outstanding from the last meeting, but if with your permission, we can let it stand over and Brian will run through it in the next meeting.
Yeah, we can process that in the next meeting. Is that agreed, honorable members?
Agreed, sir.
Agreed, sir.
All right, no, this then brings us to the end of the meeting. Let me take this opportunity and thank you all for your participation. And thank you, Dr. Velem, for the good work that you are doing. Please continue to do the good work and in assisting the committee. With that said, I think we have arrived at the end of the meeting. We have exhausted the agenda item. The meeting is adjourned, and you'll all enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Before you go, Mr. Mutle.
Yes, Honorable Mafanya.
There was an item that we said we will discuss.
Oh, yeah. No, you are right. You are right. I'm sorry about that. Before we adjourn, honorable members, at the beginning, there was a letter that we said we will deal with it. I'm not sure because Brian is no longer in the meeting. How are we going to deal with that? Dr. Velem, are you in a position of that letter, or alternatively we can defer that to the next meeting where we'll deal with it, put it in the agenda as the first item to process, to deal with? I'm not sure how we are going to go about it because Brian is no longer in the meeting.
Okay.
Through you, Chair. Yes. My proposal is seemingly there are not enough members in this meeting now. We struggle even to move for some of this on the agenda. I think we should defer the matter to the 14th, where we'll deliberate on the matter. Thank you.
Yeah. Is it agreed, honorable members, that we defer that, as agreed, that we'll deal with it at the end of the agenda items for today's meeting? Then we defer it to our next meeting.
Yes, I agree, Chair.
Agreed, Chair.
All right, no, thank you very much. I think that then brings us to the end of our discussions and the end of the meeting. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your support.